Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Stephen, for such a warm welcome and for everyone on chat. This is an amazing event. I am blown away by the number of people here and just the energy and momentum around this. I mean, Dan, you said this about Stephen, and it's true. There's nobody more passionate about this industry and what the opportunity is for everyone. So I've been so excited to get to know Hire Easy over the past, oh my gosh, almost decade now, and to get to know this community. I feel so blessed to be doing this research and to study a space that I also feel so passionate about. I am an analyst, so I do research on the HR technology market. TA Tech is my focus area. So you're going to see a lot of data and a lot of research, but I promise you a lot of the themes that Stephen talked about and this idea that agentic AI is really thriving right now is absolutely something that we see in our research as well. So I am going to keep an eye on chat here. I've got it pulled up, so I'll keep an eye on this if anything comes in. There's a lot of you here, but I'm also going to go through these slides as quickly as possible. So it's been a crazy year. I'm getting asked about predictions for next year already, and it's hard because I look back at last year's predictions and I got everything wrong. So you can take that for what it's worth. But I want to kind of just take a minute and pause for a second and talk about all of the craziness and all the change that's happened so far this year. A few things really stand out to me. The first thing is, I think to Stephen's point, and I think what we've seen from Hire Easy for sure, is that agentic AI is here to stay. And that is absolutely true. It's completely transforming our workforce, not just within HR tech or TA tech. It's changing the dynamic and the structure of our workforce, but it's also changing how we recruit, engage talent in a major way. It's absolutely going to be a game changer for us moving forward. So if you're hesitant about it, you're not sure about it, this is a great place to learn more. I just encourage you to get curious about this area. The other thing that I want to talk about this year is pricing models have changed quite a bit. I think that's a positive thing. I think for a lot of companies, whether they were looking at subscription models or they were looking at seat pricing, we're seeing now a lot of consumption-based pricing. And the idea is that there's a lot of benefits for companies and benefits to adopting a lot of these systems and solutions. So AI is really driving the changes in pricing models. So if you're looking at different solutions right now and you're evaluating what you're already investing in, you definitely want to think about how these pricing models are changing and how you can work with partners to get, what makes the most sense for your organization. The other piece I want to talk about is responsible AI as a priority. We're about to publish a huge CRM index. Hyreezy is part of that index. And it's amazing to me how many providers still don't show the explainability when they're doing things like matching or when they're providing insights into how recruiters can help inform decision making. So we have to really prioritize responsible AI. There are providers that definitely take this seriously. There are others that certainly do not. And I encourage you to really make this a focus area. The other thing I want to talk about is HCM versus best of breed is outdated. This is especially true in the ATS market. I know for many of you, you are ATS users and you invest in ATSs. I'm not going to give an ATS presentation, although I definitely love to do that. But I want to talk a little bit about, we just saw this major acquisition with SAP acquiring Smart Recruiters and the whole thought of, are we going to have a big system like Workday, Oracle, SAP, or a best of breed ATS is being reconsidered by a lot of organizations. And now we're looking at, okay, what else could we be using? What other platforms provide intelligence or CRM or experience or an agentic layer? And organizations are really going to look to the future at what is the option. It's going to be HCM versus these other platforms. And then the other piece, and we're going to talk about this, is we definitely have a data crisis right now. Companies are dealing with too much data from different systems. There's not a lot of consistency. And this need for analytics has never been more important than what we're seeing right now. So we look at investment in the technology market and TA tech and HR tech every year. And we compare, we actually look at it multiple times during the year. And we're at a really good place. I know it's felt like there's been a lot of change. Maybe some of you have seen changes in your budgets. Maybe some of you that work for vendors are feeling frustrated at longer sales cycle. I see like where we're at right now and where we're going to be heading into 2026 as an amazing year. Companies are really starting to look more critically at their investments. They're definitely recognizing the value of technology, especially with all this agentic AI discussion that we're hearing. And we're seeing that this market is really starting to um, bounce back. If you were feeling a little sluggish over the past few years or feeling like frustrated that you couldn't move forward in some of the tech decisions you wanted to make at your organization. So to me, it's a really exciting time. You can see here we found 51% of companies are increasing their investment in TA tech, and then 44 continue to invest the same. So I think it's going to be a very exciting 2026. Um, what we're seeing here that I think can be frustrating with that excitement is there's going to be more of a focus on ROI. For a lot of organizations, and especially in our industry, we don't do a lot with ROI. We make decisions on technology because we think we need something or we've used something in the past, but we don't really look at the outcomes it's going to provide our organization. So we have to think about technology and technology investments in terms of what value, what outcomes, what ROI we're going to see. And you can see here, we found that only 1 in 2 companies are really measuring the ROI of their investments. As we see more cross-functional communication and CFOs are involved, CIOs are involved, this ROI discussion is going to be even more important. There's responsibility for companies, there's also responsibility for vendors to play a role in this as well. So if you think about this investment and you think about, okay, companies are going to be spending more on talent acquisition technology in the next year. I think this is going to be a very exciting year. What are they going to be spending money on and what currently doesn't work in their bread and butter, which is the ATS? And you can see what we found here is the biggest points of frustration are scheduling, analytics, candidate engagement, which I'll really want to focus on CRM here, and then sourcing. This is what the ATS does not do well. And this is where companies need to really start to think about, okay, what and where are we going to be able to get most or all of this solved for? What systems will be able to do that? So there's 3 things that I want to talk about. I know I'm kind of getting close to time here, so I want to get through the 3 themes based on our research that I think are really important as you think about the rest of this year and then leading up to next year, where these priorities and where the focus should be. The first, I want to talk about the CRM investment because we're doing a big research project on the CRM market, so it's definitely top of mind for me, but it's top of mind for a lot of companies too. And in the past, you've just had very traditional options for CRM. Now we have many more options. I mean, HireEasy launched a CRM over a year ago and has been very successful in this area. Simplicity, getting the right price point, ease of use, recruiter experience are all major themes within the CRM for moving forward. The next piece that I want to talk about is AI. So Stephen talked a lot about AI and agentic AI. I believe in everything he said. I think this is absolutely an area that will be thriving in TA Tech in the next year. We're going to share a little bit of research on what we see there as well. And then the final theme that I want to talk about is around analytics, because this is a huge pain point for organizations. If you're an organization and you have an ATS and you're using multiple different disparate solutions, maybe you have 3 ATSs within your own organization, you're collecting data from multiple systems that often don't make sense. I was just with an organization not too long ago, and they were trying to integrate multiple systems, and they couldn't even get the accurate number of hires that they made for 2024. That wasn't even showing on the dashboards. So this analytics crisis that we're in today is a big one, and we have to think about what insights do we need? What insights does our organization need, especially in this agentic era? So these are the 3 themes we're going to talk about, and I want to start with CRM. Love it or hate it, CRM it's a hot market. In many cases, this is the starting point for organizations as they look at TA transformation or they look at investing in, new technology. It's not just the ATS, they're often starting with the CRM. But what we found is a lot of the same frustrations around the CRM still exist. And what we found is only 14% of companies report to using more than half of the CRM functionality. So that's crazy to me. For organizations that are spending sometimes $500,000 to well over $1 million on a CRM, they're not even using half of the functionality. And there's a lot of functionality in these CRM systems. When you go through this process and you go through the RFP process, you're asking for a lot of things. You're asking for employee referrals, internal mobility. You're asking for, campaigns and events and all this different functionality. And to then not be able to use it, that's not because you don't need those things done. It's because these systems are way too complex and they're not designed for recruiters. And that's a major problem with the CRM that companies are still facing today. What we found is a lot of companies are looking and started to look at exploring, okay, should we go to our ATS for our CRM? And you can see here it's really a mix when we looked at this. So for some companies, they're looking at a standalone CRM. For 28% of companies, they're looking at a CRM plus ATS. For those companies, we found they often then go back and want the standalone CRM. There's this idea that we need both CRM and ATS, and now companies are kind of rethinking that model and saying, do we need our CRM from our ATS, or do we need to look at other providers, sourcing providers, talent intelligence providers, where there could be greater value and greater adoption of the CRM than in a system that recruiters also do not like to use, the ATS. So there's been a real shift in how companies are thinking about evaluating them. This, you'll have the slides. I'm not going to go through all of this, but I want to show that the orchestration is so important when you think about where the CRM fits and how it needs to be integrated with the other systems that you're using. Whether that's thinking about the career site and how you're going to turn that into campaigns and communication and then scheduling or rediscovery or referrals or events, there is so much orchestration required, not just within the CRM, but in the other systems you're using. So thinking about what your provider has in addition to that CRM and how they're integrating with other providers in a simple way that allows you to see this value and this orchestration, and allows your recruiters to actually do this work because this is their workflow. So that's a really important way to think about, evaluating what do you want your CRM to do beyond just CRM. And you'll see none of this really fits just within the ATS. Agentic AI plays a huge role in changing this model. So this orchestration is happening naturally through an agentic AI model, not just through, manually having to take these steps and to make this integration happen. So some trends that I want to just point out from our research in the CRM cannot be viewed in isolation. You have to think about the bigger picture. There's a lot of companies that in the past would just look at a CRM and that's it. We want to look at what else you might need. And this is an important place to start. There's, I think every provider now that has a CRM is offering something else. But think about that orchestration layer and what's important for your organization and what you need from that provider beyond just being able to run campaigns. Data infrastructure must come before AI. So this is really important when evaluating providers. You want to make sure that they approach data in a way that's not only responsible, but they have the right data infrastructure before they're just making announcements and announcing an agent that's not really an agent, or introducing a co-pilot that's really not a co-pilot. If these things don't work, they're going to create more frustration for your recruiters than actually improving that experience. Another big trend that we're seeing is healthcare. Anyone here in the healthcare industry, you can just give me a little wave or a thumbs up or something. The healthcare is a huge, awesome. So many of you, healthcare is a huge priority for CRM providers because there's such a need for it. There's such a need to be able to engage with talent before they apply for a job in an industry that's so fast paced, and is really requires a very special skill set. So this healthcare is a huge priority right now within the CRM. And if any of you are here and you want more insight into kind of what we're seeing here, I'm happy to share it. Pricing's going up and up and up. You want to be very careful, back to the first point, if you're looking at a CRM and beyond a CRM at other things, these are actually things you want and need. That's the first step, because otherwise vendors are just going to put add-on, 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 add-on to an RFP that are going to be things that you might not want, things you weren't really asking for, and that price is going up and up. For a lot of companies, the price point for a CRM is getting close to $1 million or over $1 million. The next piece is so important. I think it's important for all. Yes, and Shannon's right. Not hire easy. That's definitely a differentiator, and that's part of our report. The next piece is hyper personalization. Absolutely, this is such a priority in any area of TA tech. Candidates expect to be treated like consumers. They expect to have personalized communication, whether that's in sourcing, whether that's, thinking about, pre-applying for a job, that's also during the interview process. There needs to be a level of personalization. The agentic layer can certainly help with that. You need to make sure your providers truly understand this and they're moving in that direction. So that is CRM. I'm happy to talk to anyone about this CRM market at any point. I want to move on to the agentic piece because it's so interesting. And obviously, this has been the big topic all year. First thing I want to say about it is that there are providers making true announcements that actually provide value, and make complete sense. I mean, the sourcing announcement, the easy agent announcement that we all saw in March, was, absolutely made sense. It's absolutely agentic, it's semi-autonomous, and it fit within the recruiter's workflow. A lot of other announcements that we've seen aren't truly agentic AI, and they're not even truly generative AI. They're just announcements for the sake of making announcements. So there's a lot of confusion. If your head's spinning around this whole area, you're absolutely not alone. My head is spinning as well. But you can see here when we ask companies if they're using copilots and agents, it's a mix and it's all over the place. Companies are starting to use this and they're starting to get excited about it. 38% said they're using some in a limited capacity. 32% said not yet, but they're definitely considering it. 16% said no and have no plans. And then 12% said yes extensively, which is what we expected. So I guarantee other parts of your businesses are using co-pilots and agents in many, many different ways. We have to think about how are we going to see this value within talent acquisition as well. What makes an agent? Again, I'll send all of this out to you after, and I know you'll get it from Hire Easy, but what makes AI an agent? So there's so much confusion. What we asked in our reports, we asked around autonomy. I'm going to share some data on that. Can the system act independently to initiate communication? Is the system and the agent doing the work so recruiters don't have to do that work manually? That's a big part of it. Human in the loop. So even though the system and even though the AI is actually doing the work for the recruiter or for the candidate, for the manager, or whatever we're looking at here, we have to make sure that it allows humans to be involved at any key step in the process. And decision making is ultimately happening by humans. Continuous learning, I mean, this is part of AI. We have to make sure that AI is continuing to learn, and there needs to be explainability. We have to understand why some of these recommendations are being made in a way that's super easy without asking the provider to be able to send you emails or reports. You have to be able to see that explainability within the system. When we asked about autonomy here, I love this because this is what I wanted to see here as well. Most companies want semi-autonomous, 52%. And that makes complete sense. You don't want AI doing all the work. There's huge value in having recruiters focusing on very strategic things. But if AI can take on the productivity pieces, and then we allow AI to enable recruiters to take on the human elements that Stephen was talking about, and the strategic elements, that's where the value is. So we have to think about that semi-autonomous model. And I look at productivity at one end of the spectrum, and then I look at decision making at the other. And the productivity, AI can take on that work. That makes everyone's experience better. That's going to make recruiters' experience better. But the decision making, AI can enable better decision making, but that's ultimately the work of humans. And it provides a more human experience and a more strategic experience for the organization. So I think it's, really looking at both ends of that spectrum. And then the final piece here, I love these comments. I'm trying to read them as I'm doing this, so this is great. Is around analytics. And this is not a new topic. We were talking about agentic AI, that's new. CRM's changed completely. Analytics, it's the same conversation that we've had for the past 10, 20 years. We have a data crisis. It's not the same data crisis we used to have where we didn't have enough data. Now we have too much data, but we have too many systems and we don't know how to make sense of this data, and this data is not consistent. So how do we think about really looking at a better strategy around analytics and investing in providers that can give us answers to our questions in a way that is trusted and is also dynamic? We found 94% of companies stated that investment in analytics has positively impacted the perceived value of the HR and TA function. for many of you, and you, again, you can give me thumbs up or whatever you want to do, you might be receiving more questions from executives within your organization or leaders within your organizations asking you for numbers, asking you for data that they need in the next 5 minutes, not in the next 3 days. Are you all seeing that? Yes. It's incredibly frustrating. And then you've got to go to 20 different systems to figure out where that data is. And you're not even sure if you can trust the data in those systems. We have to think about how do we, get to a place where we are able to orchestrate all this data together and absolutely be able to answer and respond to questions in a way that we're, responding in an immediate way with trusted data. This is a big part. If you're looking at TA and your provider is not super focused on analytics, we've got a problem. I was talking to a big TA leader very recently, a CHRO actually, and he was saying, like, there's so many CRMs that don't even show you conversion rates. That's the first thing that he would like to see. That's what he wants to see, and we're not able to show it. This is a quote from Shane No from ClickUp. He's actually moved on to another organization now, but I love this quote from him. We did a webinar together earlier this year. Recruiting is the only job where everyone thinks they can do it. The best way to build credibility is through the mastery of your data. And I love that. And there's many different ways to do that. Um, And then the impact of analytics, 93% connect HR data with revenue. For 88% of organizations, they're able to connect it with productivity. So it's a win-win. Push your providers in this area. A lot of systems, separate analytic systems can cost money. You don't necessarily need to go in that direction. There are providers that do this very well, and there might even be existing providers you're using that focus on analytics. So I'll wrap up here. I'm sorry, Dan, if I went over a little bit, but I'm excited for all these topics, and hopefully this was helpful to anyone listening. So some key recommendations. One size doesn't fit all. This is really hard because there's so many companies investing in different things. You can go to conferences, you can hear people speak, and it's easy to just think, let's just copy that and do it for our organization. But it's most important thing you can do is look at your company, look at what you've used before, look at, what has worked and what doesn't work, and figure out what's important for your organization, even before going down this path. Think about the long term. You really want to make sure that you're putting and planting the seeds that will help your company in the future. I think so often, especially in TA, we just respond based on how we're hiring. Are we hiring a lot of people right now, like we did during the pandemic? Is that slowing down? What do we expect for the future? But we've got to operate differently because talent acquisition and recruiting is so important, regardless of what you're hiring and how you're hiring. It doesn't matter, how these numbers change. It's important to have that structure. It's important to have strategic talent acquisition and to find the right partners, regardless of what those numbers are. Look at the big picture, find that partner. It's so important. And the partner is not just about the product, the partner is the whole company. What is their value? What's the culture? What is the leadership team? Are they going to be there for you when you're going through a difficult time as an organization? You definitely want that partner. I know even a lot of you that are Hire Easy clients probably have Steven's cell phone numbers because that's how available and that's how much they view partnership at that organization. And then the last piece is have fun. I love this industry so much. I could talk about it forever. I think if you're feeling frustrated and you're feeling alone in the work you're doing, I'm sure your work for many of you has doubled or tripled since the pandemic. Build a network and build a community outside of your own organization. There are 800, 900, 1,000 people on this webinar right now that can be a resource for you and can be a community for you and a support system for you. So definitely take advantage of that. A huge thank you to Hire Easy for inviting me to be here and for putting this on. I think it's so important for our community, and I will turn this back over to Dan now.